Hello my Saab friends, today is episode numero dos of my Aero project. If you're new to the channel, thanks for clicking on the video. Be sure to consider subscribing if you like Saab projects or just Saabs in general. It's the beauty queen. This is the basket case, my 2008 Fusion Blue Metallic with a really cool B50 leather interior. Project car that doesn't run. The engine, it's kind of rotten. Head gasket issues, probably some other things, but doesn't run. Bumper falling off, wiring issues, window regulator bad, door lock issues. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But today, got a game plan. I have some parts, so we're gonna work on the impact sensor on the front, hopefully take care of the airbag light, work on the wiring for the brake assist pump, hopefully take care of the lights for the StabiliTrak and the brake system. And then also over here is a connector that was ripped out, which is pretty miraculous because the pins stayed in place, but we're gonna work on that, get that reconnected, and hopefully get everything within this bumper system working, minus the fog lights because I do not have the bulbs yet. And plus, these are really bad. Yeah, look at that. So, I picked up some parts from the junkyard, so let me show you what I have. All of this stuff, minus the spark plugs. Sorry, this is kind of a cluster. My miter saw is sitting here, but I ended up getting an owner's manual. Pretty sweet. Got a bunch of different relays. This is kind of cool. This is actually something that I need on the red Saab. Well, I didn't break it. But this is for the headlight washers. These always pop out. Drive me nuts. I guess this car needs it too. But this pops out, so then this shoots straight up in the air. So I got one of those that is not broke. It's pretty cool. Got a window regulator because of course there's issues with that window regulator. An impact sensor that we'll swap out today. I got a harness in case I need it for the impact sensor. Some other miscellaneous stuff. I do have another connector for the headlight washer system because this connector is broke. May not get to that today. Main thing I'm working on is the wiring. Oh, the e-brake. This was actually really tricky to get off. But yeah, so that, I don't think I showed you in the first video, but I don't have it, or I don't have the entire e-brake system for whatever reason. So that sits on there like that, but the whole bottom portion and then the button, or I guess the button's right here, I don't have it. So there's that. This is broke. Every single Saab that I've ever owned, this little guy is always broke. It sits on there until you bump it. So I do have another one, but the problem is this, I think, is the coin slot holder, they call it. I don't know. If I'm wrong, correct me, please. But basically, this one's out of an 07, doesn't work in this one, so I can probably swap out that bottom piece that this clips onto, but I figured this is a good thing to have because the clips are not broken, so I'll save that for another day. Just a bunch of random stuff. So today, got a game plan, let's get to it. Easy swap. We'll do this first. So this one's annoying because it doesn't even close, and quite honestly, I should probably be worried about some other things like, you know, the engine not working, but hey, this makes me feel better. Look at that. Whew. This one broke, done. Bumper, let's get that out of the way. Okay, so the second repair today, because of course that was number one, is this impact sensor. Now I'm gonna try to straighten this up a little bit, but if you can tell, the connector up top here is broken and it's actually missing this black piece right there, because of course there's two of them up front. So this car, I imagine, had the bumper off for some time and things were a little bit tweaked. You can tell like this is moved so I need to look more into that. But basically, previous owner told me they ran over a curb stop, backed up, ripped the front bumper off, and it appears some of this stuff may have shifted. Can't really tell too much, but everything is actually still structurally sound, still, you know, tight in place, and I don't see anything crazy going on outside of like this bracket has moved a bit, and the radiator and stuff doesn't leak, so that's a plus. But I'm not quite sure what happened here. Something did hit this top here where it tweaked this core support piece where the hood latches into, so this doesn't latch properly, so I got another one of these, and then also this was bent. So I don't know exactly the story of how both of these got bent, but nonetheless I'm going to try to straighten this up and put on the new impact sensor, and then hopefully that takes care of the airbag warning light. If not, I'll have to dig into the Tech 2 and see what else I can find, but I did get both in case. But this is the only one visually I can see that had issues, and especially with this bracket being bent. But it's interesting because none of this stuff is bent. Like if you'd think it was in an impact, this crash bar would have been bent in as well to cause this bracket. So it's almost like something fell on here and something fell on here. Very bizarre. The whole story of the car is kind of bizarre, but let me show you what I have. So this is the replacement. It's got these very interesting Torx bolts, but then there are E-Torx on the other end because they're hard to get to. Got my little E-Torx here, E5. I would say that's definitely broke. That piece just fell right off. The new versus the old. Okay, so I'm gonna grab some pliers and see if I can straighten that out first. Alright, that's pretty straight now, so now we're going to throw on that new impact sensor. I'm not quite sure how this goes because again the original one was broke, but judging by the opposite side one we can kind of figure out how this goes in. Here's the old one, there is the new one. So it's interesting the center portion itself wasn't damaged, but whatever this is, and you know this black piece, I don't know, in an accident, this gets broken off and that's what triggers it. But that was obviously broken. This one seems to be good, but you know, we're changing it to another one. We'll see if that airbag light comes on. Hopefully not. On to the next project. Next task on the list are these bare connectors. Before we make any repairs to this connector down here, we're going to cut the power first. That way if we touch any of these wires, we don't short anything out. And then worst case, if this does not work, I have another one right here that will solder in. And if you didn't watch the first video, basically I explain how this person, whenever they backed out over that curb stop, ripped the front bumper off and some other stuff. Well, it miraculously pulled the connector, pulled the pins out of the connector. So I went to the junkyard, I ended up getting another connector, and I don't think I'll need that, but worst case I'll splice it in. But basically, This is like the main feed for the bumper assembly. So in the front, you have the ambient air temperature sensor, which is somewhere down here, right there. So that tells you the temperature outside. Fog lights. Anything coming through this main power connector in this bumper will not get powered until I fix this connector. So hopefully this is simple, that I can just push them back in here. But worst case, like I said, I do have this connector. Okay, so unfortunately, this outer pin right here, it's actually missing part of it, and it is broke down in there. Two outer ones pushed in fine, these two are not. And then with this one being broken, might as well just cut this off and solder on this one. So here is the almost finalized product of this harness, and I did not film it. So unfortunately, I guess today is not my day with soldering. So I don't know if it's an issue with the solder I used, the flux. I just replaced my old flux and picked up some new stuff. I don't know if it's the tip, the gun, for whatever reason. There's a lot of factors, and just not my day. I couldn't get the wires to just conjoin perfectly together, and then I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I set this high standard for myself, and it's, you know, soldering something that I've done for a number of years off and on. So I set this high standard for myself, and then whenever it doesn't happen, it's like super disappointing. And I'm normally highly against these butt connectors, and granted there's nothing really wrong with them, but when you're able to solder, it's definitely my go-to. So I resorted to these. I have them on there. They do make a kind of butt connectors with shrink tubing kind of built into it, but I had these in the garage already, and I have a whole bunch of shrink tubing from many soldering projects throughout the years. And one of the giant downfalls of butt connectors is the fact that you get such a bulky mess. So I have the butt connectors, I have shrink tubing over top of it, electrical tape, and then this is the original casing that was over these wires. I cut a slit in it so I could pull this up, so whenever I was trying to conjoin the wires, I'd have space, and then now I have this pulled back down, and I guess I'll wrap more tape around it, so it's going to look like a fist when it's done. It's going to look like garbage, but hopefully it works. I mean, I'm super bummed that I couldn't get it to solder, especially since I've been doing it for a number of years, but like I said, I guess the planets were in a line, and today was not my day. So, alright, well hopefully I don't screw up taping this. If I do, I'm selling the car right now. Okay, there we go. Now we're on to the brake assist pump. If you didn't watch my first episode where I kind of talked about the damage, well, unfortunately, the front bumper is now a quick detachable unit. The previous owner ran over a curb stop, backed up, and it unfortunately, you know, did some carnage and ripped some wires, and 3 of those being to this brake assist pump. And I wasn't quite certain how this could come apart because there's not a lot of research on this thing outside of it costing like $550. But pretty much this piece goes on the side, and it's something like that, but pressed in there, and it's kind of at a weird angle at this point, but just envision it just like that. And what I found out was there's 2 T27 Torx screws on each end. Pop that out, drop it down, because I'm trying to get to this connector in hopes of either resoldering it or replacing it. But what I found out was once you get this connector off, it's kind of interesting because there's 2 prongs up there. There we go. So the 2 prongs, this, whoop, one of those 2 prongs, but this top piece pops off like that. There's where those 2 prongs are, and it goes on like such. So we got that part out, and then even further, this bottom piece comes out, and that's the connector. So it's a pretty interesting system. I've never dealt with a connector like this before, and what's even more interesting and not surprising was that when I first unclipped this, there was actually moisture in here. I'm surprised it's not corroded, but being, you know, kind of in the wheel well area, I imagine a bunch of stuff gets kicked up here, so it's not surprising that there was moisture in this. What I'm going to try to attempt is, there's that purple pinkish connector piece, plastic deal at the bottom. I think I can shift that over and use some of these electrical pin tool guy things. I don't know the official term to that, but potentially shove one down in there and pull this broken one out and see if I can harvest one of these style connectors from another Saab connector that I have, or if I can solder an extension on it to then attach to here, or all-time worst case scenario, see if I can find this on like esaabparts.com or something, and hopefully I don't have to replace the entire unit. Now the connector is slid over. I'm not sure if at this point these will come out. Ah, there we go. There it is. So if you're wondering about these tools, I believe I got them from eBay, so I'll have to see if I can find a link, but they are on point. They are perfect for little projects like this, and basically you have to find where the little locking guy is, pull that out, and then usually you go from like behind and you can get this tab. And what you're trying to do, get your tool and ever so slightly work it down and push this tab down, forcing it downwards, and it was able to pop out. All set up here. I got my little helping hands from Harbor Freight. It's kind of a nice little jingle there, helping hands from Harbor Freight. Say that 10 times fast. I already know I'm not the best solderer in the world, but I have this thing set up, and we'll see if this will work. Okay, certainly not the prettiest thing, but those are the prongs that I peeled open. I didn't show it on the camera, but I peeled it open. This is the original crimped end of the wire that was broke off in there. I just stripped back the wire. This is the one that's coming from the car harness that goes into that connector. And then this is that little dust shield. Now this, I don't really anticipate it being able to go over the solder joint, but I do have a piece of shrink tube in case. And then I'm thinking, if that dust shield piece doesn't go in there, I'll probably just put a little RTV in there and it should be good. Little ears that were sticking out before, those have been crimped onto here a little bit better. That dust boot, or that little like dust cover, that's been slid down, and I have a little tiny piece of shrink tubing on here as well. That I will shrink once everything is in place and where I want it. But this, believe it or not, that's actually the original connector that came out of that piece that's somewhere around here. Yeah, this one right here. Pretty incredible. So now I have 2 more wires that I need to strip back and solder on here, and then hopefully we're good on this. Alright, so I was having some issues soldering this back into place, so I'm not quite sure what I was able to record and what I wasn't. At some point the camera turned off, but what I ended up doing was pulling the pins out, just like I did with that brown wire, that thinner one, and just soldering it right to that pin because the wire was so short. But I was able to get all 3 of them soldered. I have a piece of shrink tube here. This is a little bit of the excess of that brown wire I'm tucking up in here, and I'll wrap some electrical tape just around here for some extra protection. And now the only thing left to do to finalize this connector, outside of putting it all back together, is putting this pinkish purple connector back into place. There it is. Next we take this piece, push it in there, and this one. So there it is. I'm going to wrap this with tape real quick, and then I'm ready to connect it to the actual vacuum pump. Now I'm going to plug this connector in along with the brake assist pump that we just repaired, that connector, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully some of these faults clear. Bumper slid into place. No sense in actually hooking this up for good just yet, but here is the connector that we just repaired. We'll connect the main harness of the bumper into it, so that's hooked up. So now let's turn the key, see if any of these faults are still existing, and if they are, I'm going to try to clear it with the Tech 2, but first we'll try it before we clear the codes. Interesting. Ah, it's reading the temp now, which is cool. But that pump is a whirlwind. Oh, it went out. Okay. Maybe it did its thing. That was weird. It's probably a good, like, 45 seconds of just whirling. I have a feeling it's not supposed to be that loud. I mean, the brake pedal is nice and firm. Weird. So there's definitely something going on with this pump now that it's hooked back up. I undid this rubber piece and some water came out of it, which definitely isn't good. It's a sealed unit, so I don't really see water getting inside of it unless there's like a real obvious like hole or something in the side of this, but I think it's just moisture buildup. This rubber guy, I don't think it's under high pressure, so this side is crimped, this side is not. So I was able to undo this, kind of let some of that water out, and then I trimmed back some of that rubber hose and then stuck it back on here, and that seems to be better. Now tracing that line up into the engine bay, it pops out somewhere down in here and then runs to this guy right here, and I noticed that this nylon line was broken. I'm gonna have to replace it, but for now I have a tube on here and it's actually quite solid. And then the line follows all the way around here and actually goes down and splits off and goes into the crankcase and continues on, goes behind the water fill and all the way to the power brake booster. So I don't know if there's more issues, because even with doing this, following the lines, everything else seems pretty well sealed. I'm wondering if I need to take this thing apart and where that connector is right here. There's a little gasket, if I need to look into that, because it sounds like it may be leaking, because I'm wondering if this thing energizes, runs, pressurizes the system, and then at the power brake booster it hits a certain pressure and then that pump kicks off. I don't know 100% because I've never worked on a system like this, but I am able to kind of trace the lines and visually see and kind of feel around and whatnot, but I don't really feel any other leaks. But the pump, even after fixing the leak right here, it is still just running and running and running. So I figured out, for now at least, I can unplug this guy right here and still turn the key and do what I need to do without having to worry about that. But obviously there's still a fault in the system, but whenever I have a little more time, I'm going to tear apart that again and hopefully reseal it. I don't know. We'll see. Probably not worth doing a video on, but let me know if you guys want to see that. I guess I can obviously film that. But for now, I think that is going to do it for this episode. Alright, so I think that's where I'm going to call it for the day. It's a bummer that I had some soldering issues, but I seem to have resolved the electrical side of things. The airbag light, it seems like it's still on, but we'll give it time. I may even replace that other impact sensor just in case, or heck, even the one I got from the junkyard that I just swapped in. Could have been bad. It's probably my luck. But I'm going to say we did get some small wins. got the electrical side of things done, got it wired up. The bumper can actually go back on there, but I don't want to do that until I mess a little bit more with that assist pump. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, be sure to drop a comment down below. If you have any guidance you can give me. Again, I've never worked on one of those pumps before, so it's definitely a gray area. So, I mean, if you want to see a video on me messing a little bit more with the brake pump, just let me know and I can. But for the most part, I'll probably just do that off camera just because it kind of seems like a boring thing to mess with. So I have some great news. So I'm actually not going to be doing another video about diagnosing this little guy right here, that vacuum pump, because I just realized I am a dummy. And whenever I was turning this on, it was actually pushing air, it wasn't sucking air, and so it wasn't vacuuming the air. And one way I found this out was this is where that hard line goes from that pump up to this guy right here. This only goes one way. Air sucks in, it doesn't blow out. So basically I was getting pressure here forcing out, and then as soon as I hook it up here, it would stop, the air wouldn't go anywhere. So I popped this off and I'm like, wow, it's got some good power, but I'm like thinking, wait a minute, it's not vacuuming, it's pushing air out. So I kind of followed the line a little bit, but what I realized, and some of you watching with some keen eyes may have noticed that this connector right here, I accidentally installed it 180, totally wrong. So it was pushing air instead of pulling air in. So with a simple swap, 180, reconnected that. Now everything is working like it should. Let me connect this back up. But basically you start the car or you at least turn the key, and the pump turns on for about 10 seconds. Then when it builds the pressure that it needs, automatically cuts off. So a little diagnosing that you can do, if you're getting vacuum here, then you can follow the line all the way over to here. So basically if you're having vacuum here but still having issues, follow the line all the way to here. It's a quick disconnect. Push that in. So if it does that, it shuts off after creating enough vacuum, then you know this sensor is good, and then you can trace farther down the line. You can test just this section. That tees off, goes down and around and in behind the engine, and then you can actually connect this again, disconnect this. So basically you have this line, the T line, and then if it's still causing issues, then you have an issue with this nylon line that runs all the way to the power brake booster. But I'll put a link in the description for a video that actually helped me out to diagnose this issue, and it helped me tremendously, so I'll link that in the description. But that's good news. That's actually working like it should. Super happy. We are slowly getting there. So I think the next episode, I'm gonna mess a little bit more with testing the compression, maybe checking to see more signs of a head gasket issue, and then kind of go from there. Once I do a little more diagnosing, I know 100% what the issue is, I'm gonna actually send the car off to a good friend of mine who doesn't necessarily know Saabs inside and out, but he's a lot better of a mechanic than myself. So I'm gonna have him take a look at it and let me know exactly what the route is to go, whether it be replace the head gasket or just all around find another motor to put in. So yeah, I'll do a little more diagnosing on the engine. I have new tires that I'll be putting on here. I definitely need to fix the window regulator before I send it off to my buddy in case he pulls the motor and the car has to sit outside. So got a couple things going on and more videos to come. So I do appreciate you watching. If you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it. If you want to see more of this stuff, more Saab stuff, be sure to subscribe. So I do appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you guys and gals next time. And before you go, I promise Prudence that you would say hi. Say thanks for watching. I know. Belly rubs. Subscribers give you belly rubs. More likes, the more belly rubs Prue he gets. All right, thanks for watching. What you want to be, so stay true.